Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, so if you're studying AQA A-level psychology, you already know that understanding the role of stress in illness is an absolutely massive topic. Today, we're going to unpack exactly how to tackle this, giving you the perfect blueprint for top marks. We're breaking down the biology, the key studies, and those crucial evaluation points so you can walk into your exam with total confidence.
Here's our agenda, structured just like your ideal exam essay. 1. AO1 Biological Mechanisms. 2. AO1 Key Studies. 3. AO2 Real-World Applications. 4. AO3 Evaluating the Evidence. And 5. The Biopsychosocial Synthesis. Let's get right to it. Starting off with Section 1, AO1 Biological Mechanisms.
Look, before we can evaluate anything, we've got to know how a stressful thought in your mind actually turns into physical disease in your body. There are two main biological routes you need to memorize. First up, the HPA axis. When you're facing prolonged chronic stress, this axis activates and releases cortisol. It's trying to conserve energy by shutting down non-essential stuff, which unfortunately leads to immunosuppression, meaning your body basically stops fighting off viruses effectively. On the flip side, we have the SAM pathway. Acute, frequent stress fires this one up, pumping adrenaline and noradrenaline into your system. This spikes your heart rate and, over time, causes some serious cardiovascular wear and tear.
Moving right along to Section 2, AO1 Key Studies.
Biology is great, right? But examiners want empirical evidence. For immunosuppression, Kiecold-Glazer's classic 1984 natural experiment is absolutely your go-to study. Picture this: 75 highly stressed medical students. Researchers measured their natural killer, or NK, cell activity a month before their exams, and then again right in the thick of that high-stress exam period. And the findings? Totally stark. NK cell activity plummeted during the exams, proving that everyday academic stress measurably tanks our immune defenses.
Now, here's how we instantly apply the DREAMS evaluation criteria to score those crucial points. Let's look at ecological validity. It's incredibly high here because the researchers used a naturally occurring stressor, a very real exam period. But on the flip side, look at the sample. Relying on just 75 first-year medical students, that heavily limits our ability to generalize these findings to the wider non-student population. They're a pretty specific demographic, you know?
To build on that, Cohen and his team in 1991 gave us some incredible experimental evidence. They gave participants stress questionnaires, literally quarantined them, and then deliberately exposed them to the common cold virus using nasal drops. Wild, right? But it showed a direct causal link. Individuals with higher chronic stress were significantly more likely to actually develop clinical colds. So stress wasn't just correlating with illness, it was actively rolling out the red carpet for infection.
If we apply the GRAV framework here, you get some fantastic evaluation points. Cohen's study has incredibly strong reliability because they use totally objective clinical measures, like actually weighing the participants' mucus and isolating the virus to confirm the colds. However, it definitely raises serious ethical issues. I mean, deliberately infecting healthy participants with a virus, even with their consent, is ethically questionable at best.
Pivoting over to cardiovascular disorders now, we have this terrifying multiplier from Williams et al. In 2000. They tracked over 13,000 adults for years and found that those with high anger and stress-related emotionality were over twice as likely to suffer a heart attack or a cardiovascular event compared to the lower stress folks, literally twice as likely.
And backing that up is Yusuf's massive inner heart study from 2004. This study identified psychosocial stress as a major risk factor for coronary heart disease across 52 different countries. 52. That gives this biological link massive external validity, really proving that stress is a global public health crisis right up there with smoking and obesity. But let's pause on the biology and the lab studies for a second. How does this actually look in the real world when we shift our focus to securing those crucial AO2 application marks?
Which brings us to Section 3, AO2 Real-World Applications.
Earning top-band AO2 marks means bridging the gap between theoretical mechanisms and everyday life. Just think about your own A-level exams. The prolonged psychological pressure floods your HPA axis, keeping cortisol high over weeks, which suppresses your lymphocytes. That is exactly why sixth forms are just full of coughing, sneezing students during mock season. Now, conversely, think about a high-demand, low-control job, maybe a busy call center worker. That environment repeatedly triggers the SAM pathway day after day, producing those adrenaline surges that physically damage arterial walls and eventually lead to hypertension.
And for those of you reaching for the absolute top band AO2 marks, you've got to make synoptic cross-spec links.
You can easily connect HPA dysregulation directly to your psychopathology unit, since chronic stress is heavily linked to the onset of depression. Or you can tie that cortisol release back to your biopsychology unit, showing how the endocrine system interacts directly with immune functioning. Treating psychology as one big interconnected web, that is exactly what impresses the examiners.
All right, on to Section 4, AO3 Evaluating the Evidence. Now we have to critically evaluate this massive body of evidence, because despite all that strong biological support, there's a major limitation. Much of this research is strictly correlational. Does stress cause the illness, or does being chronically ill cause the stress? It's kind of a chicken and egg situation that's incredibly hard to untangle. Moreover, we have massive lifestyle confounds to consider. When people get stressed, they tend to smoke more, sleep poorly, maybe drink more alcohol. So are they getting sick from the cortisol or just from the lack of sleep? Finally, individual differences play a massive role. A type A hostile personality makes someone far more vulnerable to stress than someone with high psychological hardiness. So it's definitely not a universal equation.
And that leaves us to our final part, Section 5, the biopsychosocial synthesis.
To bring all of these assessment objectives together into the perfect essay conclusion, you should absolutely deploy the biopsychosocial model. This is your ultimate framework. It essentially argues that while our biology, stuff like the HPA and SAM pathways, sets our baseline vulnerability, our psychological appraisals of stress, along with our social lifestyle choices, ultimately determine the final health outcome. Basically, stress doesn't act in a vacuum. It's part of a highly complex interacting system. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder for your exam prep. If stress interacts so heavily with our lifestyle and behaviors to cause illness, does that mean actively changing our mindset could actually rewire our biological vulnerability entirely?